Good morning, Algebra 2. This will be the review for your Chapter 13 test, the first part of it, which is tomorrow, May 6th, starting at 10:20 a.m. Feel free to come to a Google Meet at 10 a.m. for last-minute questions. You'll have tomorrow, some will be on Schoology, some will be on paper. So here is maybe a somewhat lengthy review on video form. You have a paper form. Here we go. This little sign is the Greek letter alpha. Once we have that, the 65 is always the hypotenuse. From alpha, far away is the opposite, nearby is the adjacent. When I'm talking about the sign of alpha, I want opposite over hypotenuse. I put 16 over 65, and that's what I do. You can see the next one have the Greek letter theta, which means I have to reassign the words opposite and adjacent. Hypotenuse stays the same, but now from theta, this is far away, that's opposite. From theta, that's nearby. So the words opposite and adjacent have changed. Now that I want the tangent, tangent is opposite over adjacent, simply 63 over 16. That's all we need. The cosine, we don't need to reassign the words from what we just did. Adjacent over hypotenuse, 16 over 65. Good. When you have a 90-degree triangle, it is just the standard SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, tangent. Here on 19, I assign the words that is opposite, that is always hypotenuse. I must choose the correct trig tool, and opposite hypotenuse is cosine. So cosine of 19 degrees equals x over 46. I make sure by hitting the mode button that my calculator is in degrees. It is. Cool. I simply hit the cosine of 19 right there, and I will take that then times 46. If I were to ask you to the nearest tenth, you would put 43.5. Cool. All right. On the triangle up there with the 38, assign the words. Far away, that's opposite. That's adjacent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Tangent of 38 degrees is opposite x over adjacent 170 degrees. So I'm going to hit the tan of 38 and take that times 170. And if I was asked to round that to the 10th, it'd be 132.8. This was the last thing we taught. The variable is going to be on the bottom. It's going to be just a little more work. Starts the same, that is opposite, that is hypotenuse. Opposite hypotenuse is sine of 42 degrees equals 93 over x. So for those of you that have been keeping up, there's a little problem when the x is on the bottom. Here is how you solve it. Simply put a 1 underneath it, and all of a sudden we're in great shape. You cross product x times the sine of 42 equals 93 times 1. Cross product x times sine of 42, 93 times 1. Solve for x, divide by the sine of 42, divide by the sine of 42. This is when the variable is on the bottom, and 93 divided by the sine of 42. And there we go. We would round that to 139.0. Please say it with me. It'll be embarrassing to say it at home. I can find the angle, it only takes a second. Say it with me. I can find the angle, it only takes a second. So I am asking you to find x. So you're going to hit the second button, assign the words. Far away opposite, hypotenuse, second sine of 36 over 75. The calculator does the work. Second sine, you will see it gets that sine -1. That's what it should say, is 36 divided by 75. And it just spits the answer out to you. If I was to ask you to the 10th, 28.7. Down here, find angle y, degrees, yo, opposite, adjacent, second tan, 431 over 604, second tan, 431 divided by 604. Hello, Cleveland, 35.5 degrees. I can find the angle, it takes a second. And then we have problems called the law of sines. We do the law of sines when we do not have a 90-degree angle in some cases. The test tomorrow, you will use the law of sines. Part B of the test, you'll use law of cosines. That's not tomorrow, law of sines. Simply what we are going to do is do cross products. We are simply going to do cross products. 91 times the sine of 54 equals x times the sine of 64. Cross product 91 times the sine of 54, x times the sine of 64. Divide both sides by the sine of 64. Yes, a shortcut happens. You can take 91 times sine of 54 divided by 64. And now I'm just going to type that in. 91 times sine of 54 divided by sine of 64. There's the problem, and there's the answer. 91 times the sine of 54 divided by the sine of 64. I will find that I got 81.9. And in a little sort of double-checky way, it's sort of, you can double-check your proportion, but if 64 is bigger, 81 is less than 91, that's a good deal. The second kind of problem, from a picture, it's exactly the way. You pick the two things you know, sine of 81 degrees over 17, because both I know the 81 and the 17. And then I go sine of 34 over x, because I know the sine of 34 and x. And now I do cross products. 17, I do it exactly the same. 17 times the sine of 34 is x times the sine of 81. I will divide by the sine of 81. 17 times sine of 34 divided by the sine of 81. And I get a value of about 9.6. And if you'd sort of look at the picture, the 34 degrees is much smaller, and the answer of 9.6 would seem to fit. And the final objective would be law of sines when you need to know the angle. And you'll have to use the second. I can find the angle of the second. Cross multiply 28 times sine of 70 equals 36 times the sine of b. Cross products. Divide both sides by 36. And I'll get the sine of b equals that answer. So I'm taking 28 times the sine of 70, hitting enter, and dividing by 36. Well, hang on. That angle is not going to be, 0.7. I can find the angle. It only takes a second. You go second sine of that answer, and we get 46.95. You'd round that to 47.0, and it would be 47 degrees. And the bottom one is the same way. It's just in picture form. Sine of 70 over 51 equals the sine of x over 43. I'm going to do cross products and then second sine. So I am right now typing in 43 times the sine of 70 equals divided by 51. I get a number. That's certainly not it. I can find the angle. It takes a second. You hit a second sine, and there you go, 52.4 degrees. That's what's going to be on the test on Wednesday. There are Google Meets today, Tuesday. If you're watching this Tuesday, there are Google Meets Tuesday at 10 a.m. and at 1:15 p.m. And then tomorrow morning, Wednesday, there's a Google Meet at 10 a.m. Test can begin at 10:20. Join those Google Meets. Email me if you have to. Have a great day.